Good morning, evening, afternoon, wherever you are. And good morning, Gary. You're in Atlanta?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah, good. So those of who don't know what we're talking about, beginning of this year, I started a video series which focuses on 3D value networks and especially deriving from the 3D printing industry. And what I mean by value networks is kind of making in a very simple terms by working together in a collective manner, we will gain much more and much faster and be able to get to market with better products and services instead of everybody blindly focusing on their own silo. And every quarter I'm going to be talking about a different topic. I started first with concrete and construction and how 3D printing industry and the construction industry would be far better coming together by creating a value network and finding the right partners from a get-go instead of trying to solve all the problems by yourself. And the next quarter is about food. And obviously, when you're putting food products into the market, that we have, again, like every other industry, you have various different challenges to be sorted out, from creating a brand to making sure the products are sustainable, how they're packed, how they're shipped, how they're distributed, all that. And from all those different areas, I'm going to be inviting experts on the table and getting their feedback on this specific topic. And I have Gary here, and I want to talk to him about sustainability and packaging. So a little drum roll, and I'll give Gary 1 minute here to introduce himself and what does he do and what do they do and what kind of sustainability ideas they might have for the food industry. So floor is yours for a couple of minutes.
Oh, Jamie, thank you so much for the introduction, and it's a pleasure to be here and have this conversation with you. I'm actually looking forward to the dialogue. I think it's some great ideas that we can explore here together, and I love the way that you're collaborating, because sustainability is a big word. It really is. And frankly, as I tell people, it's too big of a word. And what we need to do is basically try to carve it down to something that's discrete and meaningful. And the collaboration efforts that you're doing are really important to pull in those different perspectives and to look at the different lenses. And it's important to do that in order to get the broader totality view of sustainability and how we can drive and influence it. So as you mentioned, my name is Gary Robinson, and I run a consulting firm called Synaptic Packaging. And we specifically focus on developing strategies and building roadmaps and helping companies navigate the development of sustainability issues. Usually those are custom formulated to the needs of the brand client or to the investor, or sometimes it involves working with the micro innovators and the startups to help them build their launch strategies and help them go to commercialization. So, I focus entirely on the field of packaging at this time, and it's an area that is a very big focus right now for sustainability challenges. And we have a lot of issues that are coming out of the disposable packaging practices that we have today.
Yes, I'm fully aware. We're right in the thick of it ourselves, trying to navigate through and trying to find the best solutions going forward. But it's a pretty complex game, and also if you're looking at all these different brands, they might have a good mission going about it, but at the same time, if you start looking into the small print of different things and details, you start realizing, well, they might have a very sustainable story, but the reality is something different. So I wanted to touch one topic, which is the kind of artisanal paper packaging products, like let's say like a boxed water products, for example, that they claim that they're very sustainable, but if from my perspective, it looks like it still comes together out of there's an aluminum foil maybe inside, and there's maybe paper packaging on the outside, and you have a plastic cap, and they said they're very sustainable. So I'd love to hear your view on that topic.
Yeah, happy to. So beverages are a particular challenge. Obviously, being wet products, shelf stable, a lot of them have barrier requirements depending on what types of flavorings and natural products are within. So beverages always present a very significant challenge in the packaging industry due to the shelf stable characteristics and how we consume them. And as you know, they're consumed on the go. So because they're oftentimes consumed on the go, and they're portion controlled, meaning they're single serve portions typically. Beverage packaging is very much at the cornerstone of a lot of sustainability challenges. When you're in the soda business, obviously, they rely very heavily on PET, polyethylene terephthalate, which is, I think it's the number 1 or number 2 most recycled plastic, either that or HDPE. I have to look at my metrics. And there's a lot of people that are out there challenging that because of the fact that they're consumed on the go, and there's a fair amount of waste and a litter that comes out of that. And obviously, any litter, especially plastic litter, always ends up in the oceans. And so that's what we're really putting a big focus on, is how to address some of the systemic end-of-life challenges. That's one component of the strategy. The other component of the strategy is looking at the beginning of life challenges, which is where do the materials originate from, right? Are they oil-based or are they natural renewable-based? So when you talk about things like cartons and things with laminates and multi-materials and laminates are there functionally to perform, the barrier characteristics. But for end of life, they can present a lot of challenges because basically when you start fusing multiple materials together, you're diminishing the value of what can actually be recycled out of it. The milk carton example, though, is a bit of an anomaly because it's actually a very good case study. It's a situation where the industry has rallied together for many years and has actually been investing heavily in building infrastructure to actually collect and recycle those. So they're actually celebrating some big accomplishments in the last few years where they've been able to achieve critical volume thresholds of actually capture and recycling of those products. And those products are currently being recycled.
So are you talking about boxed water or are you talking about milk cartons?
Both. Yeah,
okay.
Milk, water, box cartons, they're being recycled. The group that organizes that is the Carton Council. And if my stats are correct in my mind, they've crossed over the 60% collection rate. And once they've done that, they're able to make a legal claim that it is recyclable. And it was a huge success factor because it's taken them many years to get there and a lot of heavy investment by the industry.
Yeah.
But they were able to achieve that. And, I give hats off to them, say kudos for accomplishing it.
Yeah, that's great to hear. And I of course, you see, fundamentally plastic currently has a pretty bad rep. People kind of like, let's have these, stores without plastic at all and all that. But let's talk about a couple of minutes on the good stuff that plastic has actually brought on the table, from distribution to shelf life and all that. And of course, I understand the challenges once you make these laminates. Yes, you have recycling challenges, but at the same time, then the pricing of food has gone down, and shelf life increases and so forth. So can you let's talk about the good stuff for a little bit.
Sure. Well, there's no doubt that plastics is an amazing product. It speaks volumes for itself. It's able to be engineered and customized to an outstanding degree of value add for the consumers, right? You talk about shelf life stability, the ability to down gauge it, form it, shape it. We can spend a lifetime talking about how great plastics is. The challenge is that our society, especially in the disposable piece of it, is consuming far too much. It's gotten out of control. And as a result of the consumption levels, we're wrestled with the ability to properly dispose of it afterwards. And as such, it's bioaccumulating on our planet. And so there's an immediate and a very acute need to solve that problem. And I think everybody in the industry knows that, even the plastic industry. And so they're working very hard to try and address that solution so they can continue to have a healthy growth going forward. But if I pull up the stats on the use of plastic, you're going to see it's what we call a hockey stick curve. I mean, it's going up exponentially. We're using multiples of more plastics year over year. It's quite impressive.
Yeah, no, I understand. It's always the same story. I mean, kind of relates to my last value network I chatted about the construction industry. Is like when an industry is gigantic, yes, on the outset, it will create X amount of bad as well. There's no doubt about it. But of course, if there's ways that we can do things better, then of course we should do that. But at the same time, I also one other topic that I want to discuss with you is because I also see these, of course, pictures of turtles being strangled with plastic strings and people throwing eggs at the Nestle headquarters and all that. But a lot of times it's not always the fault of the companies either, but it's the regulations. If FDA tells you can only use this type of plastic or this type of packaging for this type of product category, then there's very little that the brands can do about it. Can you elaborate a little bit more about that?
Yeah. So I focus on disruptive innovation. That's where I really like to play. I think that these challenges that you and I are talking about are very real challenges, and I don't like to kind of brush them aside. I like to stare them square down and bring our creative, innovative minds to find solutions. And I think that's where the future lies for all of us. So those are very, very real issues. In the plastics piece of it, for example, our consumption continues to grow exponentially, right? More and more and more and more. Our recycling rates have plateaued. We've not been able, with all the best interests from 1970 when they started recycling programs to today, all the money that's gone into that, the plastic industry has not gotten up above that 30% threshold. Okay.
Yeah.
So translated, that means 70% of the plastics that are produced aren't getting recycled. And so they're basically bioaccumulating on Earth, right? And that's where we have these systemic issues. So the challenge to innovate is to multiple pronged strategies, one of which is to focus on improving that recycling process such that we can get that threshold up and understand the economics around that. And I'm personally an advocate as well that we need some very near-term quick actions to reduce the amount of plastic consumption and thereby look at novel, innovative materials, alternatives that can function in a capacity similar to plastics. But that goes back to the challenge you mentioned a few minutes ago, which is that there's such incredible materials that it's very challenging for other emerging technologies to functionally perform at the caliber to which the plastics have established. So that's where there's lots of opportunity and lots of innovation, a lot of new startups happening in both those two major arenas. And I know your expertise for 3D printing is another area that is quickly coming online because it allows you to calibrate the just right amount, in the right time, in the right location. That's a big part of managing consumption, if you will.
Yeah, and of course, this pandemic is also kind of waking up people and going like, okay, we have to, not just from the plastics perspective, but everything from supply chain, local manufacturing, just-in-time production, all these kind of things. It's a lot of big questions coming up all around the world, and also we're working from home also makes communication different. I'm not saying whether it's good or bad, but it's just different, But we're able to do these kinds of communication calls. It becomes very normal for everybody. So, but can you talking about innovation for a couple of minutes? Would you have good examples of brands or companies that in your mind have really addressed this in a very creative and in a very circular kind of manner, that they're able to make a product and collect it, and it's zero waste and kind of like the best of all worlds situation? What ideas or what companies would come to your mind first?
Yeah. Several rock stars out there that are doing some really good work, and the ones that I like to applaud are the ones who really staying true to the science. They're not getting hung up in the whole marketing, greenwashing of it all, because there's just way too much of that going on. A lot of people making too much noise when they should be doing more engineering, more research. But the companies that are really, I think, doing a good job are focusing on that side of it, and they're making that steady progress and understanding just how complex it is. A couple of examples that I'll put out there to start off with. I think the work that Unilever and Procter & Gamble and Nestle and others are doing on what they call this Holy Grail project, I think is quite fascinating. And what they're focusing on is basically trying to improve the current recycling process such that it is economically sustainable. And they're working at addressing the systemic issues that basically cause a degenerative economic cycle. They're trying to turn it around. So when you take plastics, for example, this theory of infinitely recyclable, it's a beautiful idea. We're easy to buy into the marketing, but the reality of it is that plastics get commingled. There's contamination. and the quality is degraded to where it's of low value to a brand, and you're adding all this cost in the manufacturing process, so you're diminishing the value proposition and you're increasing the cost. Well, that never works well in business, right? Nobody wants to pay more for a lower quality product. And so that's where the whole idea of the closed loop in plastics really kind of breaks down, right? Is that it economically doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And that's where this Holy Grail project that these teams are doing is they're trying to focus on individual elements of that cycle to figure out how do they improve the quality, improve the efficiency, such that it does produce a good quality product that is marketable. And so things like de-inking and taking the colorants out and improved sorting technologies. Another case study is a company out in Boulder, Colorado that's bringing AI into robotics, into sorting. So that's a really cool way of trying to, pull discrete items out of a commingled stream. So those are all on the recycling side. A lot of neat going on over there. On the disruptive innovative side for novel technologies, we're seeing some really big breakthroughs in emerging technologies with bioplastics. And bioplastics is a bit of a confusing term. We have to spend more time breaking through that. I don't have time for that today, but there's a lot of neat technologies coming out of bioplastics right now. Probably the lead horse of the most impressive technology is the PHAs and the family of polymers that are coming out of the PHA developments. And those are going to be natural, renewable plastics that are also are going to be degrading in nature with industrial composting.
Got it. So there is a lot of stuff happening in the background, but the consumer doesn't always see it. They just see these big corporations they're only doing harm and trying to gain profits, but they are actually working on it. But also when people would really fully understand how complex it is, that it needs to indeed make economical sense, but it also needs to be better for the planet and all that, and also needs to be circular and all that. So it's a lot of challenges. But what I would like to close the call by asking my last question, and it is a big ask, but they call it the Holy Grail project. How would you solve this issue if you could have a blank canvas?
Yeah, I think it's a multi-pronged approach. I think near term we've got to be exiting plastics. I think it's absolutely we've gone way too far on the equation on that, and so I think there's an immediate push to move to natural renewable materials, primarily fiber-based, and I think that's a good near-term strategy. And meanwhile, we need to be improving the recycling streams and all the elements of that, because plastics are going to be here, and we need to make sure that we can properly handle them. But it's basically bringing that volume down on the plastics, bringing that quality and that recycle loop up so that is actually working like it's supposed to, and meanwhile offsetting that consumption with emerging new natural renewable materials. Fiber-based and then the biopoly-based, I think, are going to be the two key drivers. And what I think we need to be doing is basically getting that transition where we're diving down the oil-based plastic consumption, and we're ramping up next generation technologies of natural renewable materials that are both recyclable and will not bioaccumulate on Earth. Because we just simply cannot continue to sustain the level of consumption that we're doing right now with the plastics as they are. It's not going to work.
Yeah, so. And I totally agree. And it's a very, very complex issue. And again, the capitalism also comes at play at any given time. Like, we want to, produce less plastic, but now if you look at the oil prices today, they're plummeted. So, hey, now we're going to make more plastic. So it's always a tricky balance.
No, it really is, and your perspective is right on, because this perspective you're sharing is the one that we hear from the brands the most, right? I mean, the brands wake up every day like you and I. They got to do their jobs like you and I, and they've got a product, and they need to have a solution. And the easiest solution is to go buy a piece of plastic. Yeah. But there's a lot that needs to be matured in these organizations to make sure that, first and foremost, if they're going to buy that plastic, that it is recyclable, that it can be recycled. And that's a whole other discussion, right? And then on top of that, can they use recycled material in, their plastic? So these are all interim steps. But this dynamic of sustainability plays on so many levels you got to have the immediate, but you also have the longer term research has to be going on to
Yeah.
move us in a forward direction.
Like any company, you got to think for your near term sales and also your future innovation at the same time. So you can't escape it. Hey Gary, I really wanted to thank for your time today, and we learned a lot of good lessons about sustainability and packaging. And at least for myself, I'll take a lot of these lessons for our own product development, and hopefully everybody who are listening also learning something new. So thanks again for your time. And any final words?
No, just thank you. I really appreciate it. And, anytime we can collaborate together, I'm really welcome it. So thanks.
Amazing. Thanks so much.
All right.
Ciao, ciao.
Take care, guys.